Hi, my name is Jim Meyer, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Spearfish Trails and Recreation Committee and what we'd like to see for the future of Lookout Mountain. There will be a public hearing on Monday, September 16th at 7 p.m. at Spearfish City Hall. Everyone is encouraged to attend. This will be a public hearing about the trail usage and recreation opportunities on Lookout Mountain. The goals of the Spearfish Trails and Recreation Committee are to create a sustainable balance of conservation and recreation and to promote an active lifestyles in the spearfish community. This is an example of good trail. This trail is on Lookout Mountain and is over 30 years old and has existed without any maintenance. It's had use by all forms of recreation, including bicycles and hiking. This is another trail that's on Lookout Mountain that is very sustainable and is well used by hikers and bikers. Here's an example of some bad trail on Lookout Mountain. On this trail, the trail on the right has been eroded and is cupped very deeply, and it causes users and wildlife to create a new trail along to the left. This form of erosion is called braided trail, and we don't like to see it on the mountain. One of the objectives of the STAR Committee we feel is for the city of Spearfish and the user groups to correct these sorts of erosion issues. This is what we'd like to see this piece of trail look like. Exit 12 has seen a lot of erosion due to user paths going straight up the hillside. This is an eyesore and can be seen from the city. It's a feeling of Spearfish Trails and Recreation that no trails should be visible from the city. We would like to see the Exit 12 area be corrected to look like this. No trails visible and no further erosion. This is the Mickelson Trail. The Mickelson Trail is a fantastic trail through the Black Hills, but it's not the right sort of trail for Lookout. It's too wide and is not the type of use that we'd like to see. We'd like to see the narrow trails that exist. In terms of signage, this is a fantastic sign for the city of Las Vegas, but this sort of sign is not the correct for Lookout. This is the sort of trail markings we'd like to see on Lookout Mountain. And it's important to remember that trail markings are important for the mountain because it helps users to stay on the trail. Much of the trail erosion is caused by users going off trail in unsustainable ways. Lookout Mountain will be saved for future generations the best if we can create well-engineered, well-designed, well-implemented trails and can keep users on the trails. Lookout Mountain is protected by the Schmidt Conservation Easement, which was put into place in the year 2000. There are several pieces of the easement, but the key parts are Part 9, that states that the public shall have continuing access to Lookout Mountain for recreation, and then that references Section 3 about the recreation uses, and it defines the following uses and practices as being consistent with the easement, and that includes to use, locate, construct, maintain, repair, and improve the facilities on the grantor's land, that's Lookout Mountain, for public access, non-motorized, wheeled recreational uses on designated bike paths. Lester Neath wrote a legal opinion about the conservation easement and further clarifies that traditional bicycles are allowed by the easement. And he goes on to state that in his opinion, the conservation easement anticipates that the city will develop bike paths in the easement area. Mountain biking on Lookout Mountain has a long history. Here's an article from the 1984 Queen City Mail that shows some of the early mountain biking that was going on Lookout Mountain. I know that many of us have been mountain biking on Lookout Mountain since the 80s, and many of us were using the mountain long before we had driver's licenses. In all, there's over 30 years of successful multiple use of the trail system on Lookout Mountain, from the first bicycles in the early 80s to the conservation easement when it was created in May of 2000, and today where bicycling is still a very common recreation on Lookout Mountain. It's important to note that cycling existed on Lookout Mountain for over 10 years before the conservation easement was put into place, and for over 10 years after the conservation easement was put in place. On the right, we see the yield sign for multi-use trails. This is the yield pattern for all multi-use trails all around the country, including other trails in the Black Hills, and it is the yield pattern that is appropriate for Lookout Mountain. There are many ways for hikers, bikers, and horses to exist on the same mountain in harmony. Therefore, it is the recommendation of the Spearfish Trails and Recreation Committee to designate the existing multiple-use trail network on the Schmidt easement as bike path. So we'd like to see you come and support the multi-use history and future of Lookout Mountain at the City Hall meeting on Monday, September 16th at 7 p.m. Everyone is encouraged to attend. Thank you.